Hi guys, welcome to our Friday blog, High and Inside. He's Drew Allen, I'm Kevin Bowen, and we will be talking a little IU baseball every Friday for the fans out there. Just kind of giving a recap of the weekend that happened prior, and then a preview to the series that's happening on Friday. So first off, Drew, let's take a look at this past weekend. The Hoosiers traveled down to Myrtle Beach. They were 1-2. They got a ranked win over Coastal Carolina on Sunday in 16 innings in thrilling fashion, winning 2-1. And they lost to two ACC teams, Virginia Tech and Boston College, on Friday and Saturday. So for the Hoosiers, kind of something that I think Coach Smith alluded to in terms of a question mark would have been the hitting. The Hoosiers didn't hit typically like they do. They brought back 4 guys that hit over 300 last year, but they just didn't get those timely hits and just getting those hits in a row.
Yeah, Coach Smith specifically mentioned that the Hoosiers are a much better offensive team than they showed in the opening weekend, which is the truth. I mean, they've got both Dickerson and Saberin coming back from what was the Big Ten's leading team in hits last year. They were top in the conference. So really, it just comes down to getting back into a weekend to weekend base. We get on a weekend to weekend routine as far as playing in game situations. They never scored more than 2 runs in a game, but I mean, I think 4 was the highest run total they allowed in one single game. So, and that was the product of a pretty poor inning by their defense. So it's to be expected this early on in the season, but I would certainly think that with Dickerson and Saberin and all those guys at the top of the lineup, Micah Johnson had some nice hits, and Dustin DeMuth, who we're going to talk about here in a little bit. I think come a month or so, I mean, I think you're going to start to see
the offense coming together.
You're going to start to see the offense that we saw much of last year.
And kind of alluding to the freshmen, you mentioned Dustin and Ty Downing are kind of 2 freshmen that are probably going to play every day in terms of as the season goes on. We saw Tracy Smith send out 3 different catchers over the weekend. Dylan Swift and Wes Wilson started the first 2 games, and then Downing, the freshman, caught all 16 innings on Sunday against Coastal. And you mentioned those 2 guys. Dylan Dooney was also a designated hitter in one of the games. Talk a little bit about DeMuth. He played at third base for the Hoosiers. The kid, his sister, played basketball here. Right. Coach Smith said on media day that he has the strongest arm that he's ever seen. I mean, he came up with some timely hits when the Hoosiers really needed it.
Yeah, hit the winning single for their epic 16 inning marathon victory against Coastal Carolina.
Marathon in Myrtle.
Exact, marathon in Myrtle, as Jeremy Gray called it. But yeah. Specifically DeMuth, and just in particular, Tracy Smith mentioned specifically that he would definitely experiment with a lot of freshmen, both in the field and on the mound here in these first few weekends before the team really hits Big Ten play, starts getting back here in Simbauer, which still seems like ages away. But yeah. DeMuth in particular, not only at the plate where he did hit the game-winning single against Coastal and scored one of the Hoosiers' 2 runs in the 4-2 loss to Virginia Tech to open the season. He also made some pretty impressive plays at third base. I mean, he had a couple behind the back ground ball catches that he just absolutely darted to Saberin at first. So, I mean, yeah, you can definitely get the idea where Tracy Smith sings praises about his arm, and it's looking like DeMuth is going to be a player. Obviously, it's been 1 weekend, but I mean, 3 games can pretty much establish a trend. So
he's definitely penciled himself in as a starter.
I certainly think he's got a firm stranglehold on that starting position at third.
And he even slid over for Michael Basil in that game on Sunday at a short when Basil's kind of struggling a little bit. Coach Smith put his son Casey Smith in there at third base, and Dustin slid over for Basil at short. So it'll be interesting to see. The other big question marks in terms of where you're going to play is in the outfield for the Hoosiers. We saw Justin Curitan, Wes Wilson, Josh Lyon, Brian Lambert, T.C. Nip, 5 different guys starting center and right field over the weekend. Alex Dickerson, obviously the Big Ten Triple Crown winner, is going to be penciled in left field every day for the Hoosiers. But in terms of center and right, I think it's going to be just good, kind of who's hot that day. And you talked to Coach Smith Thursday morning. He kind of mentioned Justin Kierton is one of those guys who might start getting some more playing time out there in the outfield. So that, I think, is a thing that he wants to work on going into this 3-game stretch they've got starting Friday down in Texas.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you could probably expect to see Kierton at either center or right. And then, I mean, as far as the other outfielders, unless your name's Alex Dickerson, you're probably going to get moved around a little bit. Personally, though, I think TC Nip could emerge as one of those guys that's going to establish a firm stranglehold on one of the outfield positions, possibly even center field, because, man, he performed well out there in the field. Excuse me, and
he's a speedy guy from
a speedy guy.
Indiana. He's he's a fourth-year senior who's been there and done that. So I think him, Kierton. Josh Lyon has a great bat. I think the thing that Coach Smith also mentioned on media day is where to play Josh Lyon. He's a lefty that has been an All Big Ten player in the past. Right. He's definitely his bat's going to be in the lineup every day. But if Dylan Dooney, the freshman from California, starts hitting the way that Smith thinks he is, then Dooney can slide in that designated hitter role, and then you put Lyon, who at times is not known for his defense, obviously more for his bat.
Right.
But if he can play steady out there in right field, that could be an advantage for the Hoosiers, getting another bat in there in Dylan Dooney. So now switching gears, let's look at the pitching staff. Drew Leininger kind of struggled out there in the early going, a couple wild pitches on Friday. The lefty coming back. He kind of struggled a bit, but the bullpen pitched great.
Oh, the bullpen was...
Eigel, Matt Carr. I believe the Hoosiers sent out 8 different guys over the weekend.
Yep.
They were terrific, and Eigel even won a award as a
it was college. I think it was
primetime player
college,
of the week.
I think it was college baseball's 360s. He was a semifinalist for primetime player of the week.
Right. 4.1 innings against Coastal Carolina. Talk a little bit about the pitching.
Sure. As you said, the bullpen is what really shined for the Hoosiers this weekend. Starting pitching left a little bit for fans to be desired. I would suspect, particularly Leininger and Joey Donato, whose much ballyhooed debut was on Saturday. He kind of flamed out pretty quickly. But one thing to take solace in is that the bullpen, after being quite maligned last season, really stepped up and prevented a lot of further damage from being done. And obviously it was largely responsible for the Hoosiers staying in the game against Coastal Carolina and pulling out the win.
Anytime you pitch 16 innings
and
you go for a 4-hour, 31-minute marathon that it was on Sunday, your bullpen's going to have to step up big. And Blake Monar pitched great on Sunday. He was the one starter for the Hoosiers. I think Coach Smith's got to be very happy coming out of the weekend. He's coming off shoulder surgery.
He had about 5 strikeouts
from last year. He gave the Hoosiers the 5 innings that they needed, which all 3 starters, besides Joey went, I only think about 3 innings on Saturday, but Leininger and Monar both went about 5 innings, which you got to think early on in the season that's probably going to happen. But looking later on in the year, you got to think Eigel, Carr, Chad Martin, those guys are going to be prominent weekday starters for the Hoosiers, because starting next Wednesday against Xavier, they're going to be pitching a weekday against Xavier, then they got Indiana State the next Wednesday. So the Hoosiers, the quality depth out of the bullpen is going to be a vital thing for Tracy Smith. He thinks the hitting's going to come around, which I think both of us agree with, but if pitching keeps you in games, pitching and defense does that. They got a big win on Sunday, and we'll see what happens this weekend as they travel down to Texas to take on 3 more quality teams.
3 more quality teams, and there's going to be another opportunity for Tracy Smith to experiment like he wants to. He's going to have a couple more of those opportunities before things start getting into a regular rhythm with Big Ten travel and, as Kevin just mentioned, midweek trips over to Indiana State, Louisville, Xavier,
Kentucky.
So yeah, and just going back to the bullpen real quick, we kind of talked about the closer battle after media day and going into the season opening tournament down in Myrtle. It's looking like there's still something to be resolved there, but
you weren't in any closing type of situations.
There weren't any closing type of situations. Ryan Halstead, who was mentioned as a possible candidate there to replace Chris Squires, who left last year as IU's all-time saves leader. Halstead looks like he could definitely lay a strong claim to the position after coming in after a tough act to follow in Eigel with his 4 1/3 innings, and really did well. Had a couple strikeouts, and picked up the win. So look out for him in terms of the closer battle. And obviously, yeah, as we said, there's still much to be resolved. But I mean,
Right, exactly.
that's why the season
56 games scheduled.
56 long starts in February, much to the dismay of Tracy Smith, as we've kind of talked about. But
Looking
yeah.
forward to this weekend. The Hoosiers will travel down to Texas, where they'll take on Texas A&M Corpus Christi, who is not a household name, I think, among big-time sports fans. But in terms of baseball, they can play. The Islanders got a big victory over number 6 Texas on Wednesday. The Hoosiers will take them on Friday night at 7. And then Saturday they play Connecticut, who's preseason ranked top 10 in the nation. They struggled this past weekend in the Big Ten Big East Challenge. The Huskies went 1-2, but the Hoosiers will take them on 3 o'clock on Saturday. And then rounding out the road trip, they'll take on Oregon State, who won back-to-back national championships in 2006, 2007 on Sunday at noon. So this has been our first weekly blog. Hopefully we'll do this every week. Follow us on Twitter, IDS_baseball. We'll have updates from the game on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And stay tuned for Hoosier Hype for any more updates. So for Drew Allen, I'm Kevin Bowen, and you watched High and Inside.
High and Inside.